It's time to stitch the shaker boxes on our Prim quilt. The shaker boxes are on page 34. I have my fabric that has been backed with fusible interfacing, and I have my batting. As a reminder, I am adding batting and background quilting, which is different than the directions. Let's stitch the shaker boxes. I will first run the placement line for the batting. I'll place my batting and run the tack down. I will need to manually stop my machine after the tack down of the batting. I'll then place my fabric, run the tack down, and then the background quilting. The next steps will be for the applique fabrics. I will run the placement line, place the fabric and tack them down, and then trim. The rest of the block is all embroidery. It's getting ready to do the fill of the shaker boxes, and I am going to make some changes with my thread to the boxes and the flowers. So the fill of each of the box is supposed to be the ash color, which I have said several times, this is one of my favorite colors. But I just feel with my tan background, it's just really not going to show the detail. So I am going to put that aside, and I've decided to go ahead and use this blue. Now this was originally the blue I picked for the outside of the flowers, but since I'm going to do this for the boxes, I've changed my mind, and I'm actually going to do, I think, as of right now, pink for the outer petals and then the taffy for the inside instead of blue with the Dijon center. So that's what I'm thinking right now. I'm going to go ahead and stitch my boxes. I may change. My bird is red, but I think pink flowers will be fine. So as of right now, that's my plan. So I'm going to stitch out the boxes and we'll see how that looks. I had a little bunch of thread right here. Somehow it had a loop and stuff. So I've cut as much as I can off right now. I did put a little bit of fray check. I'm going to work on that when I'm completely done out of the hoop and see if I can clean that up a little bit more so it's not so big, but it's better than it was when it finished stitching. Now, the next step is going to be the star, the little eye, and then the box lids. Now these are all in the dark brown, but I think I'm going to change because I changed my color for the boxes, which by the way, I'm extremely happy with. So my last block I did was the little farm girl, and this star was stitched in that ash color, and this is solid, the outer part of the star, and you can see it, but it's just not, it doesn't have a lot of contrast with the back, and so I'm glad that I chose to do this blue color. Now, with that being said, the boxes are supposed to be the dark brown. In the pattern, the boxes are kind of a monochromatic with that ash color is kind of a light grayish brown, and then a brown lid. I don't think the brown is going to look as good with that. So what I think I'm going to do is I pulled my Tidewater, which again is one of my favorite colors. It's, a little bit brighter, and I think this is going to look a little bit more monochromatic than the brown lids. So what I need to do, however, is I need to stitch the star and the eye in the dark brown. And then, of course, after it cuts the eye, I will just stop my machine manually, change my thread, and then stitch the lids. All right, let's keep going. All right, so I just got done stitching the star and the eye, and while that was stitching out, I changed my mind again. I think I am going to go ahead and do the brown lids. I think the Tidewater, as much as I love that color, is just going to maybe be a little bit bright. I've got a lot of colors going on here. I do love the dark brown, and I think that'll tie in the star. So I am going to go ahead and just keep that same color and continue on. I am so glad that I decided to keep the dark brown like the directions said. I love it. I think it looks good, and I'm glad that I went ahead and stuck with that dark brown. Now, with that being said, I am changing back to the directions for the flowers. Now, the next step is going to be the center fill for the star and then the outer part of the flowers. The directions call for this blue. This is the blue that I had chosen. And again, I think I was thinking that because I did blue for the boxes, that maybe that's going to be too much blue. But I really feel, as I've seen this stitch out, that adding 2 more colors, especially the pinks, probably isn't the smartest idea. I've already got red, yellow, greens, and so I am just going to do what the directions say, which again is this same blue for the center of the star and the outer part of the petals. The inner part will be the Dijon. All right, so let's keep stitching. I am done with the block, but there is one more step, and that is the crosshairs. Again, that will be stitched right in the center. It needs to be a visible color if you're going to stitch it. That will just help line up the ruler, and that's what the directions call for. I am done and not going to stitch that, so I'm just going to go home and cancel. So let's go take a look at the block. So I'm going to take this out of the hoop. Again, I have my stabilizer still attached. That's always optional. And I will just trim it right next to the fabric. I am just going to trim around just to get rid of all of the excess for now. I will take out the tack down of the fabric when I'm ready to stitch the top together. And then I will remove all of the batting and stabilizer from the seam allowance so that when I sew my blocks together, it will be less bulky. So all of this will eventually get trimmed off to this inside tack down of the batting. So let's take a look at the block. And I have to say that this is one of my favorite blocks. I think that by the time this quilt is done, I'm going to have 12 favorite blocks. I love this. And I am glad again that I chose the blue. Now, with that being said, if I had a lighter background fabric or cream or just, not quite so dark, I definitely would have done the ash. I love the ash color, but with the background, I think that this was a good choice so that you can see it. I love everything about this block. Now, with the bird, there are two different reds, and this red wing is actually the third red. I had picked even a brighter red back in one of the previous blocks because my two reds that I picked out really aren't much different, and I can see that there's a difference, but I think a person looking at this quilt when it's put together probably would just see a red bird with a red wing. So if I were repicking my reds out, I would pick maybe more of a raspberry red or a deeper and a lighter. The reds that I picked were a lot close in color. I love everything about this though. The stitching around the pineapple, I just love all of the decorative stitches. I love it. All right, we have 3 more blocks to go. Let's start number 10.